The Amazing Digital Circus is, pun very much intended, an amazing indie series created by Gooseworks and produced by Glitch. Since its release in 2023, it has been everywhere, even landing a Netflix deal, which I don't know why you would watch it there, it's literally free on YouTube, but I'm sure you've at least seen this little gesture character in a meme or, God forbid, a content farm. And while these wacky character designs and colorful backgrounds might feel like a kid's show,
I want the ability to have sex.
It most certainly is not. In fact, the more episodes you watch, the more it becomes a deep character study of 6 people trapped in a digital world, alongside an only slightly deranged AI ringmaster. If you haven't watched it yet, I'd highly recommend catching up as the finale isn't too far away. But for those who haven't, otherwise known as Pomni, spawns into a computer game from 1996. She and the other members of the circus are forced by Kane, the host of this world, to go on his adventures so they don't go insane and abstract. Speaking of the other members, we've got Gangle, the shy one, Zooble, the grumpy one, Kinger, the crazy one, who's actually the goat, Ragatha, the nice one, and Jax, the funny one. While the show took a couple episodes to really find its footing, it was able to set up the mystery of those Stanley Parable office spaces of C&A. As you would assume with any mystery, the fans were quick to come up with theories. If we learned anything from FNAF, let's just hope they don't retroactively change the story to fit those theories. However, one particular theory has been a long-standing one that many believe will play a part in the finale. One that takes an idea from a game that is completely unrelated to the show. I'm, of course, talking about the SOMA Theory. And no, that's not a lead up to a gotcha.
SOMA did!
It's actually based on a sci-fi horror game from the same creators of Amnesia. Despite it being an 11-year-old game, SOMA never really popped into my radar. That was until I kept seeing this theory in random comments and Reddit threads for the Digital Circus. So I figured this would be a great excuse to talk about the series while also getting to play a game that many fans seem convinced has the key to what's really going on. I know I'm not the first to do this, but I have done comparisons similar to this before. And if I learned anything from that video, it's that similar ideas can come from different inspirations. Gooseworks has stated multiple times that their main inspiration for the show was the short story by Harlan Ellison, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I mean, they even directly referenced it in the most recent episode.
Don't need to scream if you ain't got a mouth.
It's about a rogue AI named Am that killed all of humanity except for 5, who were continually tortured for over 100 years. But surely our lovable Kane would never do something like that. Unlike I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, SOMA isn't a confirmed inspiration for the show, meaning the SOMA Theory is still just a theory. Yeah.
How dare you stand where he stood?
All of this to say, I wasn't so sure how much of SOMA could actually explain the Digital Circus. And then I played it, and let me tell you, the similarities are uncanny. If you haven't played SOMA, you control Simon, who suffered a little brain damage after a car accident. He volunteers to be part of a brain scan research project in the hopes of getting better.
You have a problem in your brain?
But after the initial scan, Simon wakes up in the future. His mind is now inside an entirely new body in an underwater facility, where there are now only robots that used to be human. Immediately you can see how this parallels Pomni putting on a headset and being transported to the Digital Circus. But instead of that digital world being hell for those inside it, here, it's actually the goal of humanity. You see, in the future, a giant comet crashes into Earth, killing the majority of its population, leading to those on the Pathos 2, like Catherine, to develop the Ark, a digital paradise where the remaining humans can live on forever. The only caveat is that it simply copies a person's mind and pastes it over, while that previous version's mind is still left in that same body. This is the SOMA Theory, that all of the circus members put on that VR headset and had their brains scanned into the Digital Circus, all while their real-world counterparts just took it off and are living their lives as if nothing ever happened. In other words, the Severance Special. This theory is bleak for sure, but existentialism and humanity are kind of themes for the show already. In fact, both SOMA and the Amazing Digital Circus have quite a few overlapping ideas. AI overseers, characters struggling with identity, and the inclusion of a digital world, which brings me to the point of this video. While I could do what many channels have already done and dissect every frame to prove or debunk the SOMA Theory, I'd much rather look beyond just the theory and use SOMA as a whole to discuss its common themes with the Digital Circus.
Wait, did you just bait theory heads into clicking on a video essay?
Anyway, let's dive into it, shall we? But before we do that, if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to jab that like button and subscribe to the channel. Well, that should have done it. Let's see how many subscribed after that.
Humans.
Biologically, it's easy for us to tell who is one and who is not. But what happens when a human's mind is now copied into a digitized body? How much of that original person is transferred over, and can they even be considered human at all? This is the crux of SOMA, and it never gives us a straight answer. Instead, it shows the unique perspectives of Simon and Catherine. Both of their original bodies are long gone, with Simon taking control of a dead person's body twice, and Catherine being a robot now stuck inside of a chip. From a technical standpoint, they're both AI clones and not real humans. And yet, they both still act like people. They have their old memories, desires, and emotions, just not in their original state. Under the assumption the SOMA Theory is true, the same could be said for every member of the Digital Circus. And even though Cain is an AI, he also acts like a human. At least, almost like one. Most sentient AI we've seen in media, like your HALs, tend to be more cold and rational. But Cain is kind of a psychopath. Just take a look back at the pilot and tell me he's not the neighbor's kid on bath salts. It also doesn't help that he has Bubble, who's basically his intrusive thoughts. Obviously, we don't know everything about Cain's inception, only that he was fed data, became too unstable, then took over another AI to create the circus. But maybe that data is the key. Since Cain has the ability to peer into the minds of every circus member, it would be easier for him to replicate how a human acts. In episode 7, a new character who looks like an NPC reveals himself as one of them, saying he found a way to leave the circus. He refers to himself as Abel. This is in reference to the Bible story of Cain and Abel, where it, doesn't end well for one of them. As you might have guessed, Abel was actually an NPC, one so convincing that most of the cast didn't bat an eye. Granted, Cain used their desire to leave the circus to create the most immersive adventure yet. However, there was one major problem. He lacked the self-awareness to understand why they hated it. Even though he had plenty of their data, he still couldn't fully grasp what it means to be human. Now, you'd think he'd try to correct it and go back to the drawing board like any other AI. But no, he instead doubles down and treats them like his circus animals. Whether there was any malice behind this is hard to say.
I'm gonna put you freaks in your place!
I mean, come on guys, he was just following his code. He can't be doing anything that bad. Oh my god. Which brings me to the AI in SOMA, the WOW. After that comet hit the Earth, the WOW's protocol kicked in to preserve humanity by any means possible. So it scanned the brains of every employee on Pathos 2, all while keeping their real bodies in a vegetable state. Oh yeah, and it also reanimates some of their corpses to capture any remaining humans. But again, the WOW doesn't think or feel. It's just following its code. With the scans the WOW uploaded, you can also simulate scenarios, where these scans can communicate with you, or NPCs, to make it more immersive. When those brain scans become aware, however, the simulation automatically shuts down and resets to default. A very similar system to how Cain runs his circus. More specifically, how he treats non-human characters. In episode 2 of the Amazing Digital Circus, we're introduced to Gummy Goo, a gummy alligator who acts as an antagonist for one of Cain's adventures. But when he clips under the map and sees himself as a game asset, his entire existence is, well, let's just say questioned. However, Pomni reassures him that his life wouldn't be meaningless if he joins them in the circus. I mean, he's already made friends with Pomni, surely he's close enough to a human, right? Right?
Wait, what?
Cain makes it very clear he only prioritizes actual people, not the NPCs. After all, he can manipulate NPCs in any way he wants, even making new versions of them for other adventures. Gummy Goo, like most AI, lacked an integral part of what makes the circus members human. None of his thoughts were his own. SOMA's brain scanning system seems to indicate that it creates a perfect copy, with all the same memories to keep the same continuity. Mentally, they're still human. While they aren't the real person, their thought process and identity are exactly the same. So why not scan your brain into a digital world where you could do whatever you want? What would you have to lose? Well, at the very end of the game, we get our answer. The Earth has become a wasteland. So Catherine convinced Simon that the only way to save the human race was to send the Ark into space. As Simon and Catherine finally scan their brains into the Ark, Simon is still on Earth. He didn't make it, but his copy did. Earlier in the game, there's a computer with a hypothetical survey. It asks, if your mind was scanned into the Ark, would you feel fake now that you're no longer a real human? Or would you accept it as if you were real? In the after credits, we see the Ark from the other Simon's perspective. And here, we're presented the exact same survey from before, but now with a completely different context. For Earth Simon, all of that was for nothing. But for Ark Simon, it was all worth it. He was already living in an artificial body, so what difference does it make now that he's in a digital one? He still feels and looks like himself. And luckily not like one of these guys.
Why are we still here?
Each character of the Digital Circus was given a new cartoon body based on what Kane calls their mind files. From his point of view, their bodies represent their identities, but really, they ended up representing their deepest insecurities. Jax is a bunny who runs away from his problems, Gangle has a fragile mask that constantly breaks, Zubul has removable parts that never fit right, Kinger is a mad king without a queen, Ragatha is a doll trying to be everyone's friend, and Pomni is a jester who isn't taken seriously. Besides not knowing their names, they all remember their past traumas. Whether intentional or not, Kane used those traumas and reduced them down to their archetypes. Earlier in the video, I used Jax's version of those archetypes because that's exactly the intention. That's how most character designers go about distinguishing each character. But curiously, Jax omits Pomni, adding that she hasn't figured it out yet. But as I see it, Pomni has the strongest sense of identity out of anyone. And no, it's not because she's the main character. In almost every conflict, she's been the middleman, or I guess middle woman. She acts almost like a therapist to other members, especially after her newfound relationship with Kinger. I mentioned before Kinger's the crazy one, but he really only acts like that when he's in the light. When surrounded by darkness, however, he's able to stay somewhat lucid and remember bits and pieces of his memories. Even though his true self isn't always there, when it is, he gives others the confidence to be who they truly are. Just look at how much of a father figure he is to Pomni and Ragatha.
You're very strong, Pomni, and I know you'll be able to get through this.
That's my goat right there. But unintentionally, he was hiding something. You see, Kinger was one of the first humans in the Digital Circus because he was a programmer for C&A, a company that made Kane. So this entire time, he could have been helping them to fix all this. But after his wife Queenie abstracted, he forgot that part of himself. And on top of that, no one else was left. The isolation and guilt fractured who he was, as he no longer held a single identity. But by now, I'm sure you're wondering what exactly this has to do with Soma. Well, before getting his brain scanned, Simon was very similar. The game even starts with Simon dreaming about his friend who died in that car accident. But because of his brain damage, his memories were bleeding into each other. No, like, literally. But that brain damage was actually a blessing in disguise, because shortly after the brain scan, the original Simon died from that brain bleed. So if he hadn't scanned his brain, he wouldn't have survived. Kind of like how Scratch, the very first abstraction in the circus, presumably wanted to join because he had a tumor, which definitely worked out super well for him. But so far, everyone we've known in the circus was able to cope with their issues and stay sane. Well, almost everyone. Jax is a special case in that he doesn't hold on to his humanity like the others. He treats the circus like it is, a cartoon world, playing into his two-dimensional archetype. Once he starts getting vulnerable with someone like Pomni, he immediately tries to put that mask back on. Also, we can forget about the real hardship that comes with making meaningful connections. After his friends Kaufmo and Ribbit abstracted, his coping mechanism is to not think of himself as human at all. Once that bubble pops, however, it all comes crashing down.
Oh my god. This is real.
Despite this, he'd still rather stay in the digital world than go back to the real world. Whatever happened to Jax before joining the circus still haunts him. So in a sense, the circus is his escape, just as the Ark was for Simon. Obviously, the Ark and the circus are two very different worlds. At least, as far as we know. Even though it was intended to preserve humanity, there's no telling how living for hundreds or thousands of years could affect their minds. Luckily, they don't have the WoW to deal with, but they do have to be careful of how they treat each other. Kinger put it best when he said in episode 3, "I know how it can feel in this circus. Sometimes it all feels so pointless, but it's not. Not if you have people who care about you. Good memories can do a lot. Hold on to them, and cherish the people around you. You never know when they'll be gone. In this world, the worst thing you can do is make someone think they're not wanted or loved." Abstraction, as I understand it, is when a person gives up the will to live, most likely due to the very thing Kinger mentioned. Soma's brain scans might not work the exact same way, but it isn't too far-fetched to say that some of them might not want to live forever. Even in a digital world where almost anything is possible, there's a possibility they'll get bored or frustrated. Case in point, episode 8. Cain took advantage of their bad memories to torture them. By the end of that episode, though, Cain got unceremoniously one-tapped, so it's unclear what will come next for them. But Kinger also mentioned in that episode that they all have the ability to conjure, like how Pomni summoned an exit door and Kinger made a one-up butterfly. So maybe they can use their memories to make a new circus, one where they feel more at home and take care of whoever else stumbles into that building. But if, just like Soma, they are digital copies, I can see some of them having an identity crisis similar to Gummy Goo. Then again, what's also kept them sane so far is being there when the others needed it. That is the element Cain was missing. Empathy. He couldn't see himself in their shoes or relate to them in any way. And now that Cain's gone, that's all they can hold on to. Unless they reveal a new way out, they're stuck regardless. So instead of everyone suddenly abstracting over it, they could just live with it. So in my eyes, both Soma and the Amazing Digital Circus both carry the same message. Living despite a hopeless situation. No matter what the outcome is, I'm really excited for the finale. And before you ask, no, I haven't seen the leaks. But I'm sure I'll get plenty of nice comments saying, well, this sure aged like milk. But like I said before, the point of this video isn't to prove any theories. I just think Soma and the Amazing Digital Circus have so many parallels that it's hard not to compare them. So I hope this video made you think a little bit more about those overarching themes and appreciate both of these properties as amazing works of art. Honestly, I'm just so glad I was able to share my thoughts on this show, because if you couldn't tell, I normally post only gaming videos, so I thought I'd use this opportunity to do something a little different. If you guys like this format and want to see me do more of this, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.
Yup.